Salal to spokes, tactically Whitestar Eagle Visions. I earned these names traditionally. I'm a pipe carrier, a lodge keeper. I'm a prophecy teacher. Right now, as a species, we are going through this amazing revolution. And you're a part of it. You know, way back in 2012 when nothing happened, so much happened, but they forgot to tell you. They forgot to show you. I'm sure you recognize the whole world is in a real interesting place right now. And the prophecies are clear that the past is coming to an end, is being dismantled as gently as possible, but definitively being dismantled. And you, as a human, are becoming so much more than you used to be. New chakras, new frequencies, new energies, new awareness, new science. You want to keep up? Come hang out with me once a week. We're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. Weird is the new sexy, they tell me. So come on, let's get weird together. Attack wise. See you soon. You know, I got a bunch of these. I didn't know it while I was doing it, but recently I was reminded that when a man collects enough of these, he becomes a chief. Kind of the way it works is one of these only shows up when you showed up for a community in some way, selflessly. You know, not selfish, selflessly. You showed up, you've made a difference, you've passed on a teaching that was forgotten. There's a variety of different really cool things that we can just do for one another. And sometimes someone's watching, sometimes someone's paying attention. And, you know, I guess a merit badge, you know, somebody showing up and saying thank you. And, you know, each and every one of these, I can tell you the story. I can tell you the connection. You know, not a single one of them doesn't come into my world without a name attached to it and some adventure of another, you know. And I like that about it. I really do, you know. I just thought I'd share that little bit of teachings with you. The beadwork, you know, so often this is a language, not just the color itself, but how many, you know, spaces between the lines is a message. Again, this is a language. Just like my hat, my cedar hat, you know, made by Alva Victor. Anybody looking at that cedar hat can look at the stitching, the color, the how it's done, and say, "Oh, that hat was made by Alva, huh?" And you know that would be the truth of it. It's like a signature, if you like. Yeah, you know, copyright. Yeah, you know, but more along the lines of from me, and anybody who sees this will know it's from me to you, and that I stand up for you. You know, for sure. And you know, this one's still pretty. It's one of the most recent I've received. You know, I've got some that are so dog-eared, and you know, I mean, they're missing parts and what have you. And I treat them well, you know. But you know, at one point, I was pulling them out and showing them off to an elder, and I apologized because it's a little bit beaten up. And it was explained to me that that's actually a good thing. Yeah, you know, I mean, people want a counselor who can look at them square in the eye and say, "I've been there." You know, and and that's kind of the gist of it too, right? You know, I woke up different today. I don't know about you guys. Now, yeah. The whole world's going wonky and crazy and different. You know, but today I woke up, and when I look at objects so often, you know, based upon this oracle vision that I was born with, right? So this ability to see things slightly different. For example, when I look at that wall, I don't necessarily see that wall the same way. I've learned it's a little less tangible. It's a little bit more transparent because of how my goggles were imprinted in this lifetime. And I stepped into this with this awareness. I not only see auras, even from the beta cycle, the normal conversation cycle. If something's living, I can tell you at a glance it's living, because it has an aura. But I see things slightly different, you know, almost like it's just an energetic vibration, you know, and that includes color. That includes, believe it or not, I can almost see sound. Yeah, you know, and those of you who might out there who have that same experience might even have that same dynamic as well. And you know, seeing into ether and what have you, the hot, you know, coming off of a hot steam energy, evaporating off of a hot road. And I mean, we can see into all the different spectrums perpetually as human beings, but I see that differently in that way. And I've come accustomed to it. today I woke up and I was busy last night, astrally and traveling and all that good stuff. But today when I woke up and I looked at stuff, it seemed to be vibrating differently, like a different musical note, if you like. Yeah, it was, to be perfectly honest, it was much more tangible even. But if I had to guess, and I've been chewing on this all day long, I would think it had something to do with gravity, specifically magnetism, and how magnetism itself is this bonding force. Yes, it's expansive simultaneously. It's almost like it's everything in the universe is becoming slightly bigger, and to do so, it's got to vibrate itself slightly bigger. Kind of an idea. So it's getting more expansive, but it's definitely vibrating on a different frequency. I assume this is me just shifting now into much more of that, if you want, 5D awareness, if you're going to use those terms, right? Stepping into those higher base frequencies, knowing full well that, of course, I have to anchor equally as deep, get into my physical world equally as much as, stretching up and up into the sky into my spiritual, right? And that's a pretty weird conversation to have. I get it. And it's not every day that I have an opportunity to have these kind of conversations with people in my world. And I am so grateful when they show up. It's, to be honest, it's one of the reasons I appreciate that most of you are tapping in, because it gets weird around here, and I'm not shy or ashamed or or full of it. I'm literally and authentically sharing my experience with my life with you, and maybe a few teachings along the way. And again, I can appreciate that because I like people like that in my world too. And I got to share with you our guest today, Vince. Him and I met, number of years back. Vince, if you want to come on out, brother, that'd be amazing. I think I met Vince a billion years ago when I was stepping into creating. Do you want to help Vince come forward here? Dun, 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 dun. I met Vince, I believe. Vince, meet everybody. Everybody meet Vince, okay? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is when I was looking for people for my Monashees project up in Canberra, by Cherryville. And I believe you and your significant other, maybe not even your wife at the time, where anyway, it was definitely you and I, across the smoke-filled room, we just connected instantly. We saw each other game. I love you, brother. Seriously, I love what you're doing. I love who you are and how you're showing up. I stalk you perpetually, for sure. And I just can't send too many prayers your way. I'm trying to remember exactly how long it's been, but boy, at least 10 years.
Something like that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So I really want to I know you're a humble person. I know you're, down to earth and real, but here at Whitestar Teachings, we also allow you and almost insist you own some of your gold. What are you doing these days? Tell everybody, brag a little bit. Okay. What's going on?
Well, I'll say ho matakiase. My name is Vince, is what my parents call me. But since we're in this kind of spiritual kind of speak here, my traditional name is Ochako Maskwa Okina Wachiku, which was Plains Cree for Spirit Bearer Guardian. And my name at Sundance is Two Fans. So I just saw you with an eagle feather a little earlier. So I just always keep a couple around me too.
Yeah, hi, for sure. You know what? That's another thing
one I used for smudging right here, and this one here was gifted to me by a Sioux elder down in the Crow's Nest Pass here recently. So that's a spotted eagle, Romblake Lishka. And this one is, I'm finding it really good for just like tapping and doing that healing work and just like diving deep in with that one. So yeah, anyway, we're doing feather talk today.
I love it. Totally. You see, how many people can you have this conversation with? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll show you yours and you show me mine. And, I can appreciate that you honor that red path in your way too, right? Like it's really, really interesting because I see that, again, I see how you walk your walk, and, I can appreciate that, those I've earned my spirit name also. I've traditionally stepped into ceremony and and earned kicking and scratching every step along the way my place in it, for sure, but at the same time insisting that it's authentically mine and that I'm doing it my way, right? So so many people get caught up on both sides of the fence of, cultural appropriation, right? For sure. And I appreciate that you're one of these guys out there that I can say, yeah, there's a guy who's actually walking in community, I'm saying, versus kind of borrowing these tools, right? There's just such a big difference there. And I had no idea I was going to talk about this when we first started, but to be honest, I want to compliment you, and I want to shine a light on this as well for our viewers, right? That there is a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, I come from a long lineage myself. We were talking, you had yours way back to like the 800s and stuff like that. And I can trace mine way back too, where, to be honest, a feather, an eagle feather, and a piece of sage were probably used as predominantly then, at some point as well, right? And so there's no ownership. Nobody can own an eagle feather besides the eagle it came from, I guess, right? But here in North America, certainly, obviously the predominance of the teaching still being a living teaching here, right? For sure, kind of identifies it almost, certainly currently as, but again, I mean, as we walk our authentic, we're finding it's just not exclusive, right? For sure, it really is inclusive. And I know that you do a lot of your work by introducing people to the land, to the space, to directions, to there's just so much that you're bringing to the table all at once. Is so far over and above a feather, but at the same time honoring and respecting those traditions and those teachings are.
Well, on the thread of eagle feathers, several years back, my cousin, he's a roadman for the Native American church, and he gifted me 5 eagles to take care of for the people. So I had to disassemble them and send all those parts off to the different people that needed to get those. And the one part that touched me the most is the down is so precious. And we keep that down for the women who go in the moon lodge, and the moon and all our ceremonies are kind of after that, honoring up the feminine and honoring up that time, that their sacred time of that deep connection time that they have when they're on the moon time. And when they emerge from that moon lodge teepee, we put all this down there, and they emerge, and it just all flows around them. It's such an honor.
It's so mystical. Totally
beautiful. Oh my God, it's nice. Yeah. And actually, my beloved and I are painting a tarot deck. And so I did a self-portrait for the magician one, and,
no doubt.
And I got myself in some old robes, and and all this. There's a portal and all that. But the thing is like, it's the only card in the deck that has a sword on the altar, but then an eagle feather is flying into my hand, and then there won't be any more swords in that deck because the feather is far more powerful than the sword.
Oh. Truth be spoken there, totally.
Yeah. So when a person really understands the power from the spirit realm of what these things are about, so it's kind of neat to be on a podcast talk with another pipe carrier. That's cool.
Yes, totally, right. Exactly. Like, how often does that happen, right? For sure. And
it's funny. This morning I had a conversation with a guy who's coming to my lodge, and he sundanced once, and somehow he got a pipe out of that, and he was working on his pipe, and he broke it, and he felt so bad. Anyway, he got another piece, and he tried to make another pipe, and he broke that too. And I'm like, I'm kind of thinking it might not be your path right now.
Back to the front of the line.
Go that for 4 years and see what happens first, right? Because there's like protocols. There's things that have to be in place in order to be able to be in a position to receive a tool of so much responsibility.
Totally. And
we're not pipe holders, we're pipe carriers. We
totally
we work with it all the time.
We are mules. We're absolutely, and you best be strong, because that mule you're carrying like an atlas, I so hear you, brother. So many people, step into these things because, it's like a badge, or it's like a fad, or it's like and that's not how it works. Becoming a brand new pipe carrier, for example, at least it worked out this way in my traditions. When I was first introduced to that bundle, it suckled from me for a year while I went through protocols and anchored in and all that. And then it literally for a whole year, it suckled from me. And then afterwards, it started giving back more and more and more. And now it's this cannon, it's endless energy, right? So, for sure. But there is a process even in just that first year that is You're carrying a yoke that, there's, I don't want to use the word burden. You know what I'm saying? It's not about that, but it's about you figuring out how to dig deep, right? And which is again, Sundance, right? So, totally learning how to dig deep. It's not about being in pain. It's not about machismo even, right? It's about, it's about,
My teacher always says, you're not going out there to be a trinket on a tree. Right?
Yeah.
So, I won't get into all those kind of deep conversations. It's a little deep for like on the air.
I hear you. Yeah.
I'd love to carry on some of these conversations, mano to mano sometime. But, when I was down on the downtown east side, I guess it was probably somewhere around the time when I started up Wellbriety. So there's a place in Vancouver called Culture Saves Lives, right in the downtown or the heart of the downtown east side. Yep. There's Pigeon Park right there. And then there's this art gallery. That's a First Nations art gallery. And Culture Saves Lives was kind of running it. And they have a big medicine wheel painted in the floor. So that was the spot that creator lined up for us to do this, because we're actually allowed to smudge in there. A lot of the spaces I was looking at, you couldn't smudge or the fire alarms go off. And we need to have that smudge bowl going all night. And the new guys, I would get them, to be the firekeeper, make sure that thing doesn't go out, and get them trained in that way, right? Like focus in on something. And anyway, we did a ceremonial version of the 12 steps that involves the elders' teachings and involves the medicine wheel. And it takes like 6 months to do it. We meet 3 hours a week, and it takes 6 months. And now, since I've done that, nobody's picked up again. We've got 100% recovery rate. And AA can both, which is the leading one, has the highest recovery rate. And they're boasting an 11% recovery rate. And what that means is that a person will stay clean for 1 year after they do their set of steps. That's the best that traditional recovery can offer. And so this it was mind-blowing to me, because especially working with the downtown east side, and of course most of the people come in are First Nations,
Sure.
And the intergenerational trauma and all that, and then all of a sudden we bring in this thing that these people are experiencing, because they go into the sacred, they go into the sacred, right? And once they discover the sacred, and then once they discover that all that stuff that their ancestor handed them to heal in this huge weight is not their responsibility, they take that off. Their only responsibility is to heal themselves. And then their ancestors get to watch that, and they get to heal in that way. So we heal 14 generations, 7 ahead and 7 behind, by doing this healing work here in this time. And once the guys discovered that, it became really easeful, and just grace came. And it's just like this big epiphany moment. I remember we're in this one group. And this one guy, and so we have to do like 6 readings before we actually get into the steps. And then this one guy, when it was his turn to share, had done the reading for step 1, and he just vomits and spews and purges out all his deepest, darkest secrets. And I'm like, dude, this isn't like step 4 yet. and then it went on a big fest. It was a domino fest. There was 20 guys, and they all just put out all their deepest, darkest secrets. And man, it was unbelievable. Who am I to say? I just stepped back. It's like, okay, creator, you do your work here.
No kidding. Well, yeah, totally. Don't stand in the way of that. Right. Oh my goodness, totally.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. So now I've developed a new program. So basically, for everybody else, so if Wellbriety can have 100% recovery rate with a lot of people who are relatively new in recovery, I've developed a new program for people with 5 or more years clean and sober.
Okay.
Abstinence. So when a person gets to that level of abstinence, in the rooms of recovery, all of a sudden they're not treated like a newcomer anymore.
Yeah.
And they usually haven't done therapy. They haven't done any group therapy. They haven't done any deep dive experiential exercises. They haven't done a lot of things. And it's really easy to become complacent, sit there and, I've done a set of steps. I know what I'm talking about. Who I think I am. And it becomes like that for them. So they have a certain set of problems that need to be addressed. So I said, okay, I'm going to set out to do that. So I've been working with my teacher, my Shifu. He's First Nations, and he's got a black belt in about 5 different martial arts, but he's also a very well renowned, famous Qigong teacher. So I've been doing a pretty intense training with him for the last 4 years. Now we're moving into medical qigong. So the next 3 years will be medical qigong, and then we move into the monastic arts after that. So, but man, oh man, oh man. I mean, I've worked with plant medicines and I've done some pretty neat psychedelic kind of experiences in my day, and ain't nothing can touch what Qigong can do. Oh my God.
Huge.
So I wrote a book called Mastering Excellence Recovery for people with 5 or more years clean and sober. And I have a chapter in the book on how to be high in recovery and get away with it.
Like Qigong, breathing, right? Yeah, totally.
Well, I'll tell you what, like when I first got to recovery years ago, I kind of out of spite, they were talking about higher power and stuff. And they said, you could choose your own higher power. I was like, okay, well, I choose a higher power that wants me high, kind of out of spite, you know? And guess what? That's what I got. I went to this meeting. Somebody says, oh, you want to get high? Go do H&I. I said, oh, what's H&I? What's that? You know? And it meant hospitals and institutions. And so that means you take a recovery meeting into a place that can't get out to a regular meeting. So this particular place that was chosen for me, thank you, Creator, was this big teepee, this treatment center that's in this massive teepee in a place called Sunrise in Calgary. So I was taking this meeting in there. And oh my God, I was getting high. I was getting so high. And then I get home and I'm still high. And I wake up in the morning, I'm still high, and I don't have a hangover. I was like, damn, this service is a pretty good drug of choice.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we got to get out of ourselves, put our eyes on somebody else, help them through their stuff, and then our stuff kind of magically vanishes. But
it's downright it's equally as addictive. You know, absolutely. You know, it's equally as addictive. You know, I love getting high all the time and being addictive to making a difference. Yeah, you know, totally. Yeah, you know. Oh, shucks, man.
Right.
Hello, my name is David.
Like what I came to discover after going to Kelly Toby, which was a deep dive experiential group therapy. Every week I went religiously for 5 years. The last 3 years I was a teamer in it and everything, And I worked through so much of my own stuff in that kind of work. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to do what he does. And then I went and got trained in it. So now I'm a counselor, and that's the kind of work that I do. I like to do groups and stuff. I do men's peaceful warrior groups out here and stuff like that, and get people into the man cave of vulnerability. Right? Get them in touch with their emotions, because the greatest strength a man can have is to be able to be vulnerable and show those emotions.
Emotional intelligence is huge. Absolutely. We don't have any building blocks when we're growing up to develop that emotional intelligence. But you're right, having that skill set, it personally, professionally, spiritually, in every way, basically there's value there, right? And you know, I totally appreciate that. Speak more to this. As you know, I've been involved with men's work myself too for quite some time, right? So, you know, for sure. Talk more about would you call it a men's peaceful warriors?
Yeah. So that's just a little man cave of vulnerability, and I love that, and we want to take this out to, like, not necessarily that particular program, but things like that out to the bigger world. And like, I work with a lot of men. Men are just seeing who I mostly attract. This program, Mastering Excellence in Recovery, is for anybody. But for some reason, I attract a lot of men, and I show them how to embrace their feminine and how to honor up the feminine. Because in this patriarchal society we live in, the woman is just not that way. And men are not allowed to share. You're meant to work, get out there, get it done, and do that sort of thing. And, go to your man cave and drink your beer and you're good, and stuff your feelings, right? Stuff. And what happens? Well, we get dis-ease stuck inside of us, and then we get physical manifestations of, we die early and, nice life, So we don't want that. Those emotions need to come up. They need to be expressed, and it needs to be taken care of in a good way. So that's why emotional fluency, when I actually look back at my own life, at all the mistakes and all the ruined relationships I'd had, and the millions of dollars I'd lost in business because of me trying to prove my worth. I was too, lack of self-worth and all that stuff. I just said, oh my God, the common denominator in all those relationships is me. I can't point the finger anymore. I got 3 pointing back at me, right?
Yeah.
So I discovered that emotional fluency was the piece to the puzzle. And it's like emotional intelligence. It's actually part of emotional intelligence, but it's like the communication aspect of it. It's like flowing in relationship and creating that aspect of it. So that's what I knew I needed to get really good at. So that's what I've been studying big time. And I've written actually 12 books on it now, on emotional fluency. Yeah. So I've got Men's Introductory Guide to Emotional Fluency, because it's like, man, I got to figure out what a feeling is. It's like
No
bouncing
doubt.
off is like there's feeling pillow with all these different feelings. And what feeling are you feeling? You go into Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. It's like you got to pinpoint the feeling. Once you know what the feeling is, then it points over to a corresponding need that's either being met or not being met.
Totally.
So you got to figure out what the feeling is.
Yeah.
Right. So I got to give them lists, and I send them emoji sheets, and I treat really old men just like they're little kids, because they don't have a clue what a feeling is.
Right back to square one. Exactly. Kind of the only emotion we were somewhat allowed to express was anger. Really, everything else.
Mad, glad, sad. Mad, glad, sad. That's the vocabulary.
Totally. Yeah. Makes sense to me. Seems to me like you know a little bit about it. Yeah, totally right. And on the right track.
Yeah.
And so the idea then is to create this space of safe, right? I guess in this sanctuary, this cave, this man cave, and I'm assuming that this is a cave that you build within that person so they can carry it with them. Afterwards, and
this is the piece where the qigong comes in. So in qigong, we have this map of the inner world called the Neijing 2. And once you can start cultivating this garden on the inside, oh my God, the worlds of opportunity that are phenomenal show up. But trying to get somebody to like, oh man, what's qigong? Is that like yoga? And so it's like a gentle persuasion rather than, hey, you need this, Yeah.
It's qigong is one of those ways that somebody who doesn't have a lot of with this natural affinity towards energy flow, some people like yourself and I, we understand the flow of things. When I was a kid, I used to invite my friends over, and I get so much energy generated between my fingers, you can almost see a little blue arc of light, right? So, that kind of juice my whole life, ever since I was a kid. But I can appreciate that, some of my students who show up, they're just dead. They're just, their mind's broke, right? So, and so Qigong, and I use Reiki sometimes too, right? Depends, how, but what's interesting about Qigong is, to be honest, in my opinion, it really is a wizard's tool. Right? They talk about the wizard's true power coming from this will, but actually that's also chi chakra, which is also what? Diaphragm, right? And so all of those three things you're actually working when you're working with Qigong, right? So, it's a very interesting way to plug in and get that juice flowing and feed, if you want to, again, back to the wizard's analogy, feed your magic. Right? Feed your intent, so that you're consciously leaving that imprint. And so you're consciously manifesting, right? So, for sure. And, I know I'm singing to the choir, but I'm talking to our people at home too, right?
Of course. No, there's a bunch of people watching. So, it's like, people get these different gifts, and, my teacher, he got this gift where if they're doing a memorial lodge for someone who's passed on, and somebody in that lodge wants to talk to that one, then he'll be the intercessor that way, and he reaches out through the water molecules that are in the lodge to go find that one and then speak for them, right? And of course he's speaking, he doesn't know what he's saying, but the other person knows what he's saying. Oh, grandpa, okay, you're here,
Totally.
Right.
I do know. Third round for me is always a mystery. You just never know what you're gonna get. Totally, right? Because that's in my world when I open the Stargate to allow, right? For sure, and you just never know. Yeah, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, in our tradition we call it the healing round too, right?
Yeah.
That's where the big magic happens.
Exactly. Totally right. I mean, every round has its magic, has its purpose, has its reason, and all that, And speaking of purpose, back to, this 100% recovery scenario, because when people finally get introduced to that great spirit, that energetic, that, maybe for the first time they can become a part of something that's bigger than themselves, right? So, they can actually find their purpose, even if that purpose is to be strong and healthy for those next generations of people that you haven't even met yet. Right. So, I could see that being such a powerful tool in someone's world, in everyone's world.
I actually redefined recovery for this particular offering. So like usually people say recovery, oh yeah, it's to get clean from substance. It's actually so much more than that. To recover fully is to come back to our innocent selves, our childlike self, right? So what happens, we start moving through life and all of a sudden we're in our formative years and all of a sudden something happens, a dog comes up, maybe, let's say a dog, we'll use that as an analogy, comes up, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," and then all of a sudden you make up this new belief system, all dogs are bad, and now you can no longer have a relationship in a nice way with a dog. Okay, or maybe some man says something and all of a sudden now all men are bad because this belief system gets made up in our head. So what happens is our saboteurs, our inner saboteurs. So I do a lot of parts work with people, internal family systems work. I don't know if you know about that, but it's like a schizophrenic walking down the street is like somebody who's like openly talking to their parts. The rest of us usually don't have the guts to do that, but we still have our little voices that we hear. And so in therapy and internal family systems, I'll create these conversations with parts to, find some alignment and some coherence. So now I've been working with this thing with this other coach I work with, Shiraz, and he has this thing called the 10 saboteurs. And so once we can identify the different saboteurs, the judge is the main saboteur, and he instigates all the other saboteurs, and gets them going. Anyway, but then we embrace the power of the sage, the 5 powers of the sage, and then we get to talk to those ones. And they usually were developed in the formative years. We're like, oh, stickler, oh, you want to be a perfectionist today, stickler? Well, guess what? No, stickler, you can't be here today. You're going to go over there. You can go play. And the authentic self is going to take over today.
So I got to introduce there. I guess got to ask before you continue. Does the stickler always have an East Coast accent? I'm just asking. Keep going. Sorry, man. Just being funny.
Yeah. So basically, we kind of work with that, and then the people, they get empowered to take care of it themselves. Like I'm results oriented. It's not about getting paid for me. It's like, I want results for people. I'm here to help people heal, not to have residual income, So,
I wish you $1 billion because, like myself, I've witnessed you, every red cent that you earn means you made a difference in someone else's life. Right. And I want people like you to be able to be gazillionaires, because then there's been lots of value showed up on this planet. Right. And that's kind of cool, right? Don't be poverty conscious on me, man.
It's interesting you bring that up because, the old medicine way, the medicine men of old would come into a village, they bring their medicine, and they would, maybe a single mom with kids doesn't have much resource, maybe an elder or something like that needs that medicine. So the rest of the tribe pitches in to make sure that medicine man is taken care of. Right. And then they also pitch in to make sure he can get to the next place he's going. But with colonization and everything like that, people have just like, so, there was a while there where I was working with a psychedelic medicine, and I made it like, okay, I'm going to work with it that way, the old way. And so people don't understand sometimes, but it also, the results are so much dramatically different than if a person's paying a lump sum. Here's what you get for this service. Boom, in that box of colonizational thinking, it doesn't have the results that it does when people give of themselves freely. So that's how I went about carrying that medicine when I was doing that. As a counselor, I can't do that anymore. But yeah, that's it's just like there's something about the spirit of the medicine and the spirit of the people, and allowing that to happen in a gracious, flowing way.
And you're bang on when you talk actually about the traditional and the good old days. Okay, in the past, you're talking about the traveling medicine keeper, of course, but in the good old days, of course, there so often each tribe had its own medicine keeper, had its own, shamans, if you like, right? And to be honest, when they come back from the hunt, they would stop by there first and drop off, some meat, and it was an ongoing look after that person in that hut, because ongoing, that person in that hut's going to come forward and say, hey, look what I got, and be able to share freely without having to worry about hunting themselves, right? Because their job was to pay attention to those parts of the community and those parts of the tribe, which were no less important than the person who weaves the fishing nets, or the, everybody had their roles, and they were looked after in that equal measure, so that there wasn't that daily stress. What's being asked and expected of so many medicine keepers these days is to be able to keep a good house and good solid energy, so that they're not stressed to the max, etc., and keep a good home and pay your bills and walk in that upright way, at the same time as walking in this deeply spiritual medicine way. The yoke is not easy to carry or easy to balance in any way, shape, or form, right? And so I understand what you're saying completely. And I'm just sharing, I guess, that from my perspective, that would be so much easier if I was coming from a place of, I didn't have to worry about feeding my kids, right? So, but when I'm feeding my kids, I don't have the energy, the time, that whatever it is, because I'm too busy looking at that dollar. I'm actually more materialistic. Does it make sense? When I'm not
Right.
being
Absolutely.
looked after, I have to pay attention more, to the money, right? Whereas if the money's just flowing, if it's just showing up in that good, healthy way, oh my goodness, the work I do because I'm free, right? To flex and to be that person. I am by heart an altruistic person. I'm saying, by nature, that's how I'm built. I'm generous. That's just, the dynamic. And I would love nothing better than to be able to do that every day and all day, for sure. The issue is again, I have kids to feed. I have a life, to create. I have things I want to accomplish. I have books to print, right? etc. Right? And none of that shows up for free. No one is, not one publisher has ever come forward and says, you know what, David, we got this one, right? Totally, right? So,
$1,000 for each edit and 4 edits per book.
Exactly.
Editing, $4,000.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Totally. Yeah. So I actually firmly believe that, to be honest, we're heading to a place here very, very, very soon where money is not going to be relevant. I mean, things we can get in conversations of straw man and the actual the money in the banks and all that stuff. But prophecies are very clear that this is the year that kind of comes to an end. I just picked up online, I don't know if you caught it, I published it on social media there, that there was this thing on Canada, the Canadian website, where it talked about no more banks as of June 2025 in Canada, international or domestic, due to the death. So, even if that isn't exactly what it says it is, I'm saying it's something different. It shows very clearly, of course, that everything's coming down in that way. The draconian empire is being dismantled, as gently as possible, but piece by piece. Nothing's sacred. Everything's being challenged and everything's being dismantled. And I, for one, couldn't be happier, because I'm actually seeing a tomorrow that doesn't involve that money thing that way, right? Mm-hmm. For sure. People are, if we all woke up trillionaires, for example, where money was literally no option in any way, shape, or form, I know that you and I know that I would still show up and do the job we're doing tomorrow. We would still be exactly the same people doing the job we do. There's probably a good 80% of the planet that can't say the same thing, right? They would immediately give up the whatever it is that they're throwing their life against, right? To pursue hopefully something of purpose in their dreams and something that it feeds them that gratification, right? For sure. And I actually believe that, and here's me just pipe dreaming, of course, right? But we have too many doctors, for example, who are doctoring because there's money in it, not because they're good healers,
Tell me.
And yeah. And what's interesting is, to be honest, these doctors have to be a little bit smart in order to get to where they are. So what if that doctor, instead of doctoring because there's money in it, but instead was focusing more on let's say inventing stuff, right? Let's say more on, for all we know, some of these doctors are out there, they're doctoring and they're not inventing that thing we need the most right now, right? They're being distracted from who they are authentically, right? Because the money is, and too many trades out there, people chase the money, right? For sure, rather than how do I show up authentically in this world, and how do I, find that purpose that you're talking about, even through that 1 year course, right? For sure. And I can appreciate that you're offering it up in that context for recovery people, but boy, that's a rite of passage. Almost anybody and everybody should at some point get to that place in their world, isn't it? Right?
Initiation, right, brother?
Yeah, totally. Right.
You got it. We've lost that old way, and it needs to come back, because this is a 7,000 year Taoist shamanic practice, right?
Yeah.
That I'm offering here. And so this goes deep and goes way, way, way back to people who knew how to be in connection with the land, knew how to be in connection with all the relations in harmony, harmonious. You know what? There's like these blue zones around the world. And they did a documentary on the blue zones, and they're wondering, why are these people living past 120? And what they discovered was a lot of more doing Qigong. I can send you a video right now of this old timer. He's 118 years old. He's dancing around like a little teenager in his backyard. Way like behaving way younger than I am. And here he is, like so old, but he's doing it.
I got a story to share with you. This is it just maybe kind of chew on it as you go through your life, right? Again, born seeing auras. At 100% of the time, almost, when someone's aura disappears, they have approximately 3 months to live. That's been my personal experience my whole life as a kid or as an adult. It's no auras. Oh boy, things are going sideways here, right? Okay, and that's whether it's natural causes, car accident, whatever. Okay, no aura means checking out. Well, there was this one fella who that wasn't the case for. I was in business with his daughter. I met the guy. He's an old fart. Kind of. Apparently he had heart issues, only functioning on 10% of his heart and all this crazy stuff. And I looked at him and he didn't have an aura. And so I sat her down and said, your dad's dying. And she laughed. And I poured her a glass of wine and said, no, really. I mean, this is serious. She says, well, the doctors told me like 6-7 years ago that he was going to die in hours. You should go home and, enjoy those moments. I rushed a ceramic urn for him. She says it's still sitting in the closet and it probably will be when I'm dead, right? So, kind of an idea. This guy so anyway, no aura whatsoever on this guy. Okay. And I had enough opportunity to spend some time literally kind of staring at him, I'm saying, trying to figure this out, right? So, for sure. There was times when I'd be working on the computer, he'd step in the room and I would get goosebumps like most people would get from a ghost. I don't have a problem with any ghost. That guy gave me goosebumps, right? Seriously. There was just what's going on here? And here's the part where you might find interesting is I of course a couple of times cornered him to try and get what's your secret. If we could bottle that, we'd make billions, right? For sure, right? And and he says he didn't know what I was talking about at first, or if he did, he wasn't prepared to go, to those places, right? But eventually I coaxed it out of him. He says, I hum like a bee. And you know what? He did. From obviously when he shared that with me, I could tell different parts where in the house what he was kind of up to by every so often you'd get this and whether it was a song he knew or didn't know, he was just making noise, and we know of course the bee itself doesn't fly with those wings. It's just a steering mechanism, and then what it flies with is that sound vibration, that sound frequency, right? And so I'm convinced when he also said that he was using it as a form of Qigong, right? You know what I'm saying? Again, the diaphragm, the breathing, sound, vibration. Like he wasn't in full stance and moving the universe, but he was moving just enough every day to stay alive, right? For sure. At a point in his world where, according to everything I know, he should have been dead. Totally. And to end this story, I was out for lunch with him and the family one afternoon, and during lunch, I saw his aura come back. It's like, whoa. So dropped him off at the old folks' home, and I'm driving his daughter home, and I say, so your dad's aura came back? She's like, what does that mean? And I went, I have no idea. We're in this together, right? It was almost 3 months to the exact minute that he did pass. Wow. Fascinating. So the science was backwards in his world. And again, I bring this up because what you're talking about, this Qigong thing, it really takes me to that space of the influence it does have on our metaphysical presence, right? For sure. That I couldn't agree more. Even more so than Reiki. Reiki is so much more passive than Qigong, right? You are doing and participating much more with a Qigong, direction, energy direction than with just Reiki. Reiki, you just say the words and verbal semantic, and it shows up, right? I'm saying much more passive. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I seen an elder recently. He came up. There was like a little table with a napkin on it, and he come up and he's kind of doing this with his hands. And then doing this with his hands, and all of a sudden, boom, the napkin catches on fire. Right?
Oh, pyrotechnics. Oh, right? My goodness.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I read this book actually years and years ago. It was like 19 or 20 or something like that. And there was this book called, a little paperback. Yeah, it's called Magic of Believing. And at that time, I was going through a real spiritual reconditioning because I was raised in a hardcore religious cult. And it was just like, the Masonic kind of deal. It was rough. And a lot of the traumas were parallel to like residential schools and stuff like that. So anyway, I gets out of this cult. I left, and I left all my family behind. It's like, no way, I'm out, and they're not allowed to talk to me. And I said, I didn't want to talk to them anyway. I'm out of here. But then when I remember closed the door behind me, and boom, all of a sudden I realized I'm alone in the world, right? Totally alone. So anyway, I had a real journey, deprogramming myself and all that kind of stuff. And this book was quite paramount in helping me. And it was called The Magic of Believing. It talked about how people can use telekinesis, telepathy, all these different gifts that people have. And he's like, they're not gifts. Just nobody ever told them they couldn't.
Correct.
Right. So in the book, he says, take a cork, take a sewing needle, stick it in there, and then fold a 3-inch piece of paper into a pyramid, set it on top, put a glass over the top of it so it's not touching it, but no air can get at it, and then tell it to move. So I remember I did this for 6 nights in a row, and I was like trying to Yoda mind meld it and everything, like use the force and all this, and just trying so hard, just like I'm sweating bullets, and like this doesn't work. On the 7th night, I said, this doesn't work. I give up. That's when it moved. It went whoop. And I went, oh, do that again. And it went whoop. Whoa, do it again. Whoop. And I said, well, spin. And it starts spinning. Holy smokes. I said, spin faster, faster. Stop. Go back the other way. And then I realized that it was in the let go, the surrender. That it works, right?
But also, you could have actually spent those first 6 days building the pathway for it too, right? We have the potential in my metaphysical courses. In the very beginning, especially, I tell the students it's not about actually necessarily achieving results immediately. You might find you're really good at things immediately, and that's cool. But just in the attempt, you're actually building the muscles, you're building the synapses, you're building the connection for it to happen. In just attempting to do so, in deciding that you want to, your body will find path of least resistance, and at some point, you just have to consistently ask it to do so, right? So, for sure. And so, I think in that case, it could literally have been just you took you a week to build the pathway, right? So, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is, right? Which if it's par for the course, usually what happens is for the first few times after you moved it the first time, you were able to move it quite a bit, but then unfortunately the results tapered down just a little bit. And now it takes way more effort in order to achieve the same thing, because new pathways are right at the front doorstep. But since then, you built a bunch of new pathways, and so you got to go sorting through the storage room now to get to that pathway. Possible, absolutely. Give yourself another week of focus. Try and probably be able to accomplish the same thing, or maybe even only in 3 days, right? Because you already got the pathway there, right?
Yeah,
fascinating stuff.
The neural pathways.
Yes, humans are amazing.
Right. It's kind of like people get stuck in their depressions and stuff, and they like it's like, okay, so imagine yourself. It's a foggy night. You got to get across this river. And then the fog clears just enough, you can see one stone. So you take that step, that first leap of faith, almost like that first thing, and you bring your foot up and you wait for the fog to clear so you can find the next stone. And you just keep moving into the fog and knowing, or hoping, but knowing that there's this path through to that other side of the river, right? Yeah. So I wrote a book on that too. But I wrote this one book. I had to poke some fun at myself. And that's one thing that recovery's really helped me do, is be able to poke fun at myself. And I wrote this book called Hi, my name is Vince, and I'm a recovered conspiracy theorist, and that's the truth. Right? And it's not necessarily that I believe that anything's any different than I used to believe. I just choose a different set of glasses to perceive it through, right? Mm-hmm. And when because I tell people in my counseling sessions, I tell everybody this. It's like we got 2 bedside tables. There's a set of glasses on each one. The first one is the one on the left is the glasses of hell. You put it on and the glass is half empty. Danger lurks around every corner. Everything's gray and dismal. It's just an ugly life. And then there's this other one, and you put this one on. Oh, look at that! The glass is half full. Who knew? And everything's rosy and it's kind of sunny in your world. Despite what the weather's doing, you're feeling the sun on the inside. And people don't understand that they have a choice. They think that they're dictated by people, places, and things. Circumstances are all going to dictate to them how they feel. In Love Alive, we made a creed at the beginning of actually probably a year into COVID. And my wife came up with it. I thought it was so good, and I started living by it. And she said, We do not allow outside circumstances, real or imagined, to dictate to us our inside state. And for a while, I put of peace there to remind me, oh yeah, peace is like the state that I want to be in. If I'm not in peace, there's something askew with me.
Correct. Any external influence in your world that you're going to allow to direct you is your choice. You've made a choice, and you can make another one in a second. I know it sounds really difficult, for those people who maybe, buckle to coercion and all those dynamics, but it really is a personal choice. Period. There is no coercion. Period. That should be able to influence that iron will of you as an individual. But you got to know who you are, know how you are. There's always going to be surprises. You're always going to surprise yourself and, whoa, where did that come from, right? Of course, but it is by, again, back to these rite of passages, right? We have to, as a community, a world global community, get into this place where we're practicing these on a regular basis, right? In the Western culture, pretty much there's only a few even rites of passage for, get your driver's license and graduate from high school. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of aside from that, what do we really got, right?
I know.
Yeah. And there's there's no men's teachings in that. There's no, whereas the indigenous, so often, to be honest, I get sent young youth, men, when they start getting into that place where, you're giving Pocahontas a sideways look. It's like, oh yeah, introduce this kid to the fire, totally. And it's time for him to learn masculine and that fire heat, that energy, that it's time for him to start stepping into that sacred and learning that there's an appropriate place for everything, including some of that stuff that you might think is just mischief, right? For sure. And so, yeah, I really honor what you're up to there, brother. I really do. This is so needed. Now,
like I say, I don't know nothing about nothing.
Yeah, I hear you. Totally.
But that's why I ask a lot of questions. And I've been blessed to have a lot of great teachers along the way. Really epic teachers. So I just repeat what they say.
Oh, totally. There's that humility we were talking about, damn you. Totally. But again, the power of edification only works that way, right? So, for sure. And so where can somebody find you? Like you're what, Nelson? Is that right? How can somebody find you?
I actually hid out from Nelson. I didn't want Nelson. I found this place close to Nelson.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
has no cell towers. And so there's this space of just about an hour's drive that there's absolutely no connection to the digital realms. That's why we chose this place.
Oh.
Yeah. So my lodge is in that place too. Right? Yeah. So so I have elks in my yard every other day. I live right here in a river. We've got our own swimming hole here. We live on an acre. Like, we're just like blessed beyond blessed. I moved out of Vancouver at the height of COVID when 5G was being turned on. I was like, This is night and day, man. It's like heaven.
Totally.
Heaven. Yeah. So anyway, that's where I am. But our office is in Nelson. I have a counseling office there as a psychotherapist, but we're also moving into this, what we call therapeutic coaching, because not really sure, with the weird rules that are going on. They're trying to say, $600,000 fine for seeing my clients in person and stuff, because I'm allergic to those, whatever you call those things. So I just like, okay, no problem. You're going to move the goalpost. I'm going to go do this instead, where there is no regulations. And still do what I still do, So
I did not become certified in a bunch of places specifically for those reasons,
Right.
Even if it's just within the industry before all the ridiculousness showed up, right? So, but for example, you can't be a massage therapist and a Reiki practitioner simultaneously. You have to be an exclusive massage therapist. Have you met me? I can't not do energy during a treatment, right? And so I studied massage therapy, but I did not on purpose become certified in it, because it would actually have become this, none of the other modalities could show up, or else I can get into trouble. You know what I'm saying? Simple as that. And so that was the ridiculousness before, never mind the, sharing a well-crafted medicine, with somebody. Oh my God, that was
can't
it.
Use that word anymore. That word is owned. There's a monopoly by these big corporations. So I have the smudge blend thing, like Graham in the spirit realm tells me how to put these blends together for specific purposes. And she's like, yeah, you can sell it if you want. But we called it Wheel of Life Healing Arts. Right. So the word medicine isn't in there.
Yes.
Oh
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I hear you, brother. Yeah.
It's just playing them at their game, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun game when you learn how to play, actually.
Yeah. 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 Well, again, then you don't respond the same way. You don't, your energy's different. You, to be
Right.
perfectly honest, have an opportunity if you like to evolve also. Right. So, for sure, and, I hear you, man. Totally. I really, really do. This world we're stepping into, I and it's already begun at the same time as the dismantling, Shiva, right, creator and destroyer, right. So on one hand, if you're paying attention, glass half empty, this planet's a shit show right now, honest to goodness, and getting worse by the day. And then if you put it on the other glasses of, oh my goodness, we're having these conversations. You know what I'm saying? We're actually living it, right? So, for sure, it's not just a conversation. Myself, I'm heading back to the woods here very soon. You know me when I had Monashees way up there up there, and that fell apart because I got knocked off my motorcycle. So I've been doing my healing because the doctors and lawyers would not come to the mountain, man. Simple as that. And so now I'm at a place where I can swing an axe again. So it's time for me to head back to an acreage, right? So for sure, I mean, you got anything next to you might want to buy? Yeah. that no
Hey,
vibe.
You know where there's a chunk of land is like ridiculously amazing little chunk of land right beside an awesome retreat center. It was part of the retreat center. I was trying to buy the retreat center at one point.
I remember. Yeah,
Johnson's Landing there.
Yeah,
so there's a little 5-acre chunk right on the side that's for sale. So you get in on that.
Does it have its own water? That's the first question.
Yeah, does it ever, dude? It's from Wishart Creek. It comes out from the rock. And it's like epic, dude.
Well, it sounds to me like I have to fire up my Tesla and come for a ride. Totally. Actually, currently, I'm running caretaking for the lodge up at Center of the Universe at Vidette Lake there. I don't know if you know where that's at, Cache Creek and Kamloops, and you head north.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's completely off grid that way too. You can't get a signal for the life of you, and there's less interference. The cabins that we stay in have, if we fire up a generator, they'd have power, right? You know what I'm saying? But there's no electrical field, right? And 12 volt, won't even penetrate the skin, right? So, I'm saying, if we decide to run off of anything, solar, that kind of idea, right? And so I so appreciate that lifestyle. When I was living in Monashees, it was the same thing, completely off grid. And I didn't miss anything. I had my computer, I had my everything in my lifestyle I needed, so it wasn't as if I was stepping back in the Stone Ages, right? For sure.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate, the lifestyle that you're working in, and I look forward to getting back to that myself very soon here.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. It's been beautiful to connect again, David. Feel into your heart where you're at with everything. Yeah, it's nice.
Totally. We have to get together and share that fire and have pipe carrier talk. Absolutely, right. There's
maybe at a lodge.
Exactly. At Vidette Lake, I've been gifted the opportunity to have access to lots of grandfathers. Maybe I'll bring you out a set. Just because, right? My wife's always
rocks.
Yeah, totally. And I'll bring you out a set. You're just far enough away. My wife's always her birthday from China is Hong, which means world traveler, right? And she's got that in her blood, man. I could buy her fancy things and whatever. I might see them out of a drawer, but when I wave some kind of a trip at her, it's like, she's all So I'm gonna go visit a friend of mine. We're gonna bring some rocks, totally. So. And I know she hasn't been out that far, so we'll make a point of it this summer, maybe. Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Go on tour again.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. I'm actually hitting Vidette. I got a retreat coming up, not this weekend, the weekend after, and I can grab some rocks then. You know what? I'll make a point of it. I'll be in touch. Definitely.
Epic.
Oh,
I love it. That would mean so much.
Oh, me too, man. Yeah, I need that in a big way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Well, we have hit the top of the hour.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
so many blessings.
Totally. And we have made sure that we splashed your website like crazy down below. Anybody who wants, more information, contact, Vince here. Him and Rebecca, I know pretty much between the two of them could probably meet and match anything that you might need fulfilled. They have the space, they have the heart space, they have the knowledge and all of that. And it's really, really nice to witness these people doing that good work, with they don't know that we're watching, but we're watching, totally. And we're all equally as proud of you as maybe you should be. A little too humble, maybe. I love you, man. Okay. See you guys next week.
Oh, Madaki, I'll see.